More than 500 years ago, one man imagined the future before anyone else could see it. His ideas changed the world forever. Imagine a person who was a painter, an inventor, a scientist, an engineer, an architect, a musician, and even an expert in studying the human body. It sounds impossible, but this person was real. His name was Leonardo da Vinci, and many people believe he was one of the smartest people who ever lived. He painted one of the most famous pictures in history. He imagined flying machines hundreds of years before airplanes existed. He studied nature with endless curiosity and filled thousands of pages with amazing ideas. But here's the surprising part. Leonardo never went to a university. He did not grow up in a rich family. And as a child, nobody knew that he would change the world forever. So, how did an ordinary boy become one of the greatest geniuses in history? Let's discover the incredible story of Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo was born on April 15th, 1452, in a small village called Vinci, near Florence in Italy. That is why we know him as Leonardo da Vinci. His name simply means Leonardo from Vinci. Italy was very different at that time. There was no united country called Italy. Instead, there were many small cities, and each city had its own rulers. Art, science, and new ideas were beginning to grow. This exciting period later became known as the Renaissance, which means rebirth. It was a time when people became interested in learning, exploring, and creating beautiful things. Leonardo was born at the perfect time for a curious mind. His father was a successful lawyer named Ser Piero. His mother was a young woman named Caterina. His parents never married each other. Because of this, Leonardo spent much of his childhood with his father's family. Life was simple. There were no computers, no televisions, no cars, no electricity. Children spent most of their time outside. For Leonardo, the whole world became his classroom. He loved walking through forests and watching birds fly across the sky. He studied flowers, rivers, insects, and clouds. While other children played games, Leonardo often stopped to ask questions. Why do birds fly? Why does water move the way it does? How do trees grow? His curiosity seemed endless. Leonardo was not interested in memorizing lessons. Instead, he wanted to understand how everything worked. He believed that nature was the greatest teacher. He carefully watched every small detail. Sometimes, he spent hours looking at a single leaf. Other times, he watched animals move. He noticed things that other people never saw. This habit stayed with him for his entire life. As Leonardo grew older, he began to draw everything around him. He carried paper wherever he went. If he saw an interesting face, he drew it. If he saw a horse, he sketched it. If he noticed unusual clouds, he quickly made a drawing. Drawing was not just a hobby. It was his way of thinking. Every picture helped him understand the world better. Soon, his family realized that the young boy had an extraordinary talent. His drawings looked alive. People were amazed by how carefully he observed every detail. When Leonardo was about 14 years old, his father made an important decision. He took Leonardo to Florence, one of the greatest cities in Europe. Florence was full of artists, builders, writers, and thinkers. Many beautiful churches and palaces were being built. Everywhere people were creating something new. It was the perfect place for a young artist. Leonardo became an apprentice in the workshop of a famous artist named Andrea del Verrocchio. This changed his life forever. An apprentice was much more than a student. Every day, Leonardo worked incredibly hard, cleaning the workshop, preparing paint, mixing colors, and learning how to make brushes. He also studied sculpture, learned metalwork, and practiced drawing every single day. Nothing was easy, but he loved learning. To Leonardo, every task was another chance to improve. Verrocchio quickly noticed that Leonardo was different from the other students. He learned faster. He asked more questions. He always wanted to know why. Instead of simply copying other artists, Leonardo tried to improve their ideas. He wanted every painting to look as real as possible. He carefully studied light. He watched how shadows changed during the day. He noticed how people's faces showed different emotions. Every small detail mattered to him. One famous story tells us that Verrocchio asked Leonardo to paint a small angel in one of his paintings. When the painting was finished, people were amazed. Many believed that Leonardo's angel looked even better than the rest of the picture. Some stories even say that Verrocchio was so surprised by Leonardo's talent that he decided never to paint again. We do not know if this story is completely true. But one thing is certain. Everyone could already see that Leonardo was becoming an extraordinary artist. Yet painting was only one part of his life. His mind never stopped asking questions. While other artists focused only on art, Leonardo wanted to understand everything. He studied plants. He studied animals. He studied rocks. He watched rivers. He looked at the stars. Every new discovery gave him another idea. His notebook slowly filled with sketches, observations, and questions. He was not trying to become the greatest painter. He was trying to understand the entire world. And that endless curiosity would soon lead him to create some of the greatest masterpieces in history. But his biggest adventures were only just beginning. Leonardo was no longer just a talented student. He was becoming an artist with a unique way of seeing the world. After years of hard work in Verrocchio's workshop, people began to notice his incredible skills. His paintings looked different. His drawings looked alive. He paid attention to every tiny detail: the light, the shadows, the expressions on people's faces. Everything had to look natural. Leonardo believed that a great artist must first become a great observer. So, he continued studying nature every single day. Around the age of 30, Leonardo left Florence and moved to the city of Milan. It was a bold decision. Milan was one of the richest and most powerful cities in Italy. Its ruler was Ludovico Sforza, also known as Ludovico the Moor. Leonardo wanted to work for him. But here is something surprising. When Leonardo wrote a letter asking for a job, he did not talk much about his paintings. Instead, he described himself as an engineer. He wrote that he could design bridges, he could build strong walls, he could create machines for moving heavy objects. He even explained how he could invent new military machines. Only near the end of the letter did he mention that he was also a painter. This tells us something very important. Leonardo did not see himself as only an artist. He believed he could solve many different kinds of problems. Life in Milan opened many new doors. Leonardo worked on paintings, sculptures, buildings, celebrations, and engineering projects. Every day brought a new challenge. Sometimes he designed beautiful costumes for special events. Other times, he planned large buildings. He even imagined giant statues made of bronze. His imagination seemed to have no limits. During this time, Leonardo began creating one of the most famous paintings in history. It was called The Last Supper. The painting shows Jesus sharing his final meal with his 12 disciples. But Leonardo wanted to paint something different. He did not want people to stand still like statues. He wanted them to look like real human beings. He wanted every face to tell a story. Imagine sitting at a dinner table. Someone suddenly says, "One of you will betray me." How would people react? Some would look surprised. Some would become angry. Some would feel afraid. Others might not believe what they heard. Leonardo carefully painted all of these emotions. Every person has a different expression. Every hand movement has meaning. Every face tells part of the story. This was something very unusual for its time. People were amazed by how alive the painting looked. Even today, more than 500 years later, millions of people travel to Italy just to see it. But Leonardo had one problem. He wanted everything to be perfect. Sometimes he spent hours thinking before touching his brush. On other days, he painted only a few small details. Then he stopped again to think. He was never in a hurry. Some people admired his careful work. Others became frustrated. They wanted him to finish his paintings more quickly. But Leonardo always believed that true quality takes time. His curiosity became even stronger. Painting alone was not enough. He wanted to understand the human body. He wanted to know how muscles worked, how bones supported the body, how the heart moved blood. He secretly studied human anatomy by carefully examining bodies after death. At that time, this was very unusual and sometimes dangerous. But Leonardo believed that knowledge was worth every effort. His drawings of the human body were incredibly accurate. Many modern doctors still admire them today. His notebooks became larger and larger. Whenever an idea appeared in his mind, he wrote it down. Sometimes he filled an entire page with sketches. Sometimes he wrote questions instead of answers. What makes the sky blue? Why do birds fly without falling? Can humans build a machine that flies? How does water shape rocks over many years? His mind never rested. Every question led to another question. One interesting habit made Leonardo even more mysterious. He often wrote his notes backward. The words could be read easily only by using a mirror. People have wondered about this for centuries. Was he protecting his ideas? Was it simply more comfortable because he was left-handed? No one knows for sure, but his notebooks remain one of the greatest collections of ideas in history. They contain thousands of pages filled with drawings, inventions, scientific observations, and creative thoughts. Even though Leonardo became famous, he was still learning every day. He believed that no person could ever know everything. The more he learned, the more questions he asked. And soon, his imagination would lead him far beyond painting. He would begin designing flying machines, armored vehicles, diving equipment, and inventions that sounded impossible in the 15th century. Some people thought he was dreaming. Others believed he was a genius. But history would prove that Leonardo was far ahead of his time. Leonardo da Vinci was already famous as an artist. People admired his paintings. They respected his talent. But inside his mind, something even bigger was happening. His imagination had no limits. He did not simply ask, "What can I paint next?" Instead, he asked, "What can humans do in the future?" This simple question led him to imagine inventions that the world would not see for hundreds of years. One day, Leonardo watched birds flying across the sky. He noticed how they moved their wings. He watched how they turned in the wind. He carefully studied every movement. Most people simply enjoyed watching birds. Leonardo wanted to understand their secret. He believed that if people could understand nature, they might one day learn to fly. For many years, he filled his notebooks with drawings of wings, flying machines, and strange mechanical devices. Some looked like giant birds. Others looked almost like modern helicopters. Of course, the technology of his time was not advanced enough to build these machines, but the ideas were extraordinary. Centuries later, engineers looked at Leonardo's sketches with great admiration. Flying was only one of his dreams. Leonardo imagined machines that could travel across the land. He designed an armored vehicle that looked surprisingly similar to a modern tank. It had thick, protective walls and could move in different directions. Although it was never built during his lifetime, the idea amazed historians many years later. He also designed a machine that looked like a bicycle. He imagined bridges that could be built quickly. He planned machines to lift heavy stones. He even designed equipment that could help people breathe underwater. Many of these ideas remained only drawings on paper. But they showed something remarkable. Leonardo's mind was always looking far into the future. His notebooks became more valuable every year. Whenever he saw something interesting, he made a sketch. Whenever he had a new idea, he wrote it down immediately. He carried notebooks almost everywhere he went. Today, thousands of his pages still exist. They contain drawings of plants, animals, buildings, rivers, machines, and even simple everyday objects. Looking through his notebooks feels like entering the mind of a genius. Leonardo believed that everything in nature was connected. He saw patterns everywhere. The shape of a tree reminded him of rivers. The movement of water reminded him of blood flowing through the human body. Clouds, mountains, plants, and people. He believed they all followed the same natural rules. This way of thinking helped him make discoveries in many different fields. One of Leonardo's greatest strengths was his patience. He never stopped observing. He never stopped learning. Sometimes he spent an entire day watching water flow in a river. Another day, he might carefully study the muscles of a horse. On another day, he would sit quietly and watch people talking in the streets. Every observation became a lesson. Every lesson became a new idea. However, Leonardo also had a weakness. He loved starting new projects, but he often found it difficult to finish them. Whenever he became curious about something new, his attention moved in a different direction. Many paintings remained unfinished. Some inventions existed only as sketches. Even his friends sometimes wished he would complete more of his work. Yet this endless curiosity was also the reason he became so extraordinary. He was never satisfied with simple answers. He always wanted to learn more. As the years passed, Leonardo became famous across Italy. Kings, rulers, and wealthy families wanted him to work for them. They admired not only his paintings, but also his brilliant ideas. Wherever he went, people recognized his remarkable talent. Still, Leonardo remained humble. He believed that nature was always the greatest teacher. He once wrote that wisdom is the daughter of experience. For him, the best way to learn was not only by reading books, but by observing the real world with careful eyes. Even today, scientists, artists, engineers, and inventors continue to admire Leonardo da Vinci. not because he knew every answer, but because he never stopped asking questions. His curiosity became his greatest gift, and in the final years of his life, that gift would leave a legacy that would inspire the entire world for centuries to come. But how did the incredible journey of Leonardo finally come to an end? Let's discover that in the final part of his story. As Leonardo grew older, his fame continued to spread across Europe. Artists admired his paintings. Scientists respected his ideas. Engineers were amazed by his inventions. People knew that Leonardo was unlike anyone else. He was not just an artist. He was a man who never stopped learning. In the final years of his life, Leonardo accepted an invitation from King Francis I of France. The young king deeply admired him. He believed Leonardo was one of the greatest minds in the world. Leonardo traveled to France carrying some of his most precious works. Among them was a painting that would later become the most famous portrait in history. It was the Mona Lisa. Today, millions of visitors travel to see this painting every year. Its gentle smile has fascinated people for centuries. Many have wondered, why is she smiling? But no one knows the answer for certain. Perhaps that mystery is one reason why the painting remains so unforgettable. Leonardo spent his last years in a quiet house near the king's castle. His body was becoming weaker. His hands were no longer as strong as they had once been. But his mind remained active. He continued drawing. He continued writing. He continued asking questions about the world. Even after a lifetime of discoveries, he still believed there was so much left to learn. On May 2nd, 1519, Leonardo da Vinci passed away at the age of 67. His life came to an end, but his ideas did not. His notebooks survived. His paintings survived. His curiosity survived. And that curiosity would continue to inspire future generations. After his death, many people carefully studied the thousands of pages he had filled with sketches and notes. Some pages showed detailed studies of the human body. Others contained plans for bridges, machines, and buildings. There were drawings of rivers, plants, birds, and clouds. Many ideas seemed impossible in the 15th century. Yet hundreds of years later, people realized that some of his designs were surprisingly close to modern inventions. Of course, Leonardo did not invent airplanes, helicopters, or tanks as we know them today. But his drawings showed that he was thinking about ideas far beyond his own time. That is one reason he is still remembered as a visionary. What made Leonardo truly extraordinary was not only his intelligence, it was his way of looking at the world. He never accepted simple answers without asking questions. He observed carefully. He experimented patiently. He learned from nature. He believed that every new discovery could lead to another. This endless curiosity helped him become both an artist and a scientist. Today, Leonardo's works can be found in museums around the world. Students study his notebooks. Artists learn from his paintings. Engineers admire his creative thinking. Doctors respect his careful anatomical drawings. Even people who know very little about art have heard the name Leonardo da Vinci. That is the mark of a truly unforgettable person. His story also teaches us an important lesson. You do not have to know everything. You do not have to be born into a rich family. You do not need a perfect education to achieve great things. What matters most is your willingness to keep learning, to stay curious, to observe, to ask questions, and to never stop improving yourself. Leonardo believed that learning was a lifelong journey. More than 500 years later, his message is still inspiring people everywhere. The next time you see a bird flying across the sky, or look at a beautiful painting, or wonder how something works, remember Leonardo da Vinci, a boy from a small village who looked at the world with curious eyes and changed history forever. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English through inspiring biographies, don't forget to subscribe and join us for another unforgettable journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep listening, and never stop asking questions.